Good morning, 8th graders. We're back looking at more signposts. And just a reminder, every time we look at these signposts, we're looking to understand what the author is trying to communicate, what's important to the author for us to get from the text we're reading. So the first one we looked at was contrasts and contradictions, but we're using the fancy pants 8th grade language to describe this. So it's verbal, situational, or dramatic irony. Quite a few of you still have to finish working through some of the assignments on irony, but irony has 3 kinds, and we talked about that. So let's just keep moving along. The aha moment, or what we're calling the turning point or climax, is when a character suddenly realizes something. It comes to them in a flash. The realization hits them like a lightning bolt. In an instant, I knew. The turning point or climax of a story. This is important. This is where everything starts to resolve. The new one today we're looking at is, again, last year we called it tough questions. The tough questions that people face, but we're calling it, actually, this is what we usually call it, conflict. A conflict. And once again, there are several kinds of conflict, but a conflict signpost is when you're reading and the character asks himself a really difficult question, like, what could I possibly do to, or I couldn't imagine how I could cope with, or how would I ever understand why she, never have I ever been so confused about, or I wonder. And so this signpost causes us to stop and notice and note the tough question, the conflict within the story. So a conflict can be several kinds. It can be, here, I'm not showing you my screen. Give me a second. Okay, the conflict can be several kinds. It can be internal, something I'm fighting within myself. I'm trying to decide. It can be external, something outside of me. And internal, there's really only one kind. It's me and myself. But external, you have man versus man, or person versus person, where my conflict is against somebody else. You have conflict of man versus self, which is kind of an internal conflict. You have man versus society, which is like the world is against him. He's trying to fight against the world. And man versus nature, where man is struggling against the physical world around him. You get adventure movies sometimes where like a person is lost on a desert island and they're trapped there. That would be man versus nature, the conflict. Now, there's also man versus machine, some people would add, where you're fighting against a machine. But in many cases, that just ends up being man against another person or man against society. Let's watch a video that gives us an example of conflict, and let's try to identify what that conflict is. Some of you may have watched this movie. It's kind of an adult movie, but I think it really illustrates this idea of conflict or tough question. So let's watch and see what the tough question is.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Follow me.
Okay, that is our video. Let me pull up the screen again here. Give me a second. So, what was the, let me refresh our page here and turn off the video. I'm trying to do this all by myself. Okay, so what was the question that Neo had to face, the man who was looking at the pills and trying to decide? It was really a question, the conflict was within himself. The conflict was within himself, where he had to make the decision. Am I going to take the one pill that represents understanding truth, or am I going to take the other pill that keeps my eyes closed? And this is the tough question, the conflict that movie worked throughout the whole video. Is the man going to welcome truth, or is he going to close his eyes? This is an internal conflict, and it is man versus self. Now, you could make an argument that it's also man versus society ultimately, because society is trying to keep him blind. But that's what makes this so much fun, because you can have discussions like that. I'm going to call this man versus self and an internal conflict. Now, I have given you a question on your Google Classroom, and I want you to go look at the question and think about it, give it some thought, and then answer it. Okay, thank you for listening. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions.